All right, all right, all right. So I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't, record the good with the bad. And this week was my first red week of the month. As you can see, week one, $2,200. Week two, about $4,000. And then week three ended with just under $900 loss. And this part of the review process is me taking self accountability and not shying away from the mistakes. It's easy to do these reviews when I've had a great week, a good week, and I'm like, basking in the glory and recording these journals and talking good about how well I did in the trade and what I did right, blah, blah, blah. And it's even more important to do these when I have a bad week because this is how I'm able to extract more information from my lack of performance so I could avoid those same pitfalls moving forward. So, let's just review why the week ended the way it did and then, go from there. So, as you guys can see, on Thursday is where I took my first loss. It was more or less a break even trade because I had enough time to bring most of my stops to like even, and then I left some still in you know with a slight exposure. I had about a total of seven positions in this trade, and then I held on. I was in profit for a while, long enough to have locked in profits, which which is where I really went wrong because I ultimately so the loss itself was $82, and then the rest were in commissions, which is what brought it to about 120. So ultimately, I had no business taking any kind of loss on this trade, but I ultimately did, and I fully accept that. If we go into the trade a little bit deeper, um, so you could have made $2,000 more today if you maximize your exits, you know, because I was up about $2,000 at one point, but I never took the profits because I made it more about the money versus paying attention to the process. I had a clear area where I should have exited the trade because the trade gave me all it could, but I was hoping that it will push past that level and go to the next level where I have my take profit. So I let greed come in. I wasn't. I was no longer rational about what I was doing with the trade. It was a clear pump and dump, mean reversion trade. And when it reverted back to the area of the mean, I kind of just like put my hopes and wishes on the trade and wanted more than what the trade actually was supposed to give me. And it ended up reversing ultimately and going back to stop me out. And that's what ultimately happened in that trade. If we go a little bit into the details, let's see, trade view. If we go a little more into the detail, this is what it looked like. Um, you know, I had a great entry right around here when we had the pump. 1, 2, 3 days of pump, made a formation high, traded it back inside the 20 EMA, and in Asia session we had this sort of like liquidity grab before we head back down inside that 20 EMA and breaking structure on a lower time frame, which gave me a great indication that hey, this trade was supposed to go. And as you can see, this is where the impulsive move started, and this is the area I should have been focused on taking profits. But however, I wanted the next level below this clear exit area right here, and eventually I was in. As y'all can see, I was in really good profit over here, about $1,700 to $2,000. The trade pulled back. I held on strong. I believed in it, It came back, and I was really, again, I had a great opportunity to exit in this area where it was a clear, obvious area to exit. And then, the trade just kept kind of like ranging and then eventually reversing back to like close me out at mostly even. And that was really it. It doesn't go that much deeper than that. I had my hopes and dreams of making more money than the trade was actually supposed to give me, and I ended up ultimately paying for it. And then this loss ultimately bled into the next trading day, which I ended up taking a bigger loss. So, this is how that slippery slope started, so this is it for that one. Cut and dry. I had the trade. I didn't take the profit. It ended up kind of breaking me back even. I paid the additional on the fees. Lost 120 that Thursday, and then on Friday I tried to impress on that next trade to like make this money back. And then I wasn't being objective anymore. I was trading on tilt. I was less than my optimal self at that point because I was just focused on making this money back instead of like following the process. So we go to the next day. Mm, so that's Thursday, the $120 loss, and then USD CAD was completely different trade. But I was more or less looking for the same setup. It was a pump and dump setting up, but I just got in a little too early. And, quite frankly, I kind of just like lost sight of my process. Although it was brief, it was long enough for me to take a L, you know. And I'll show it to you on TradingView because it's a little more cleaner. Um, and this is what I was looking at. Let's go to my And this was my idea behind that pump and dump because, from Monday pump, Tuesday pump, Wednesday pump, fourth day we started ranging. And then day five is when I think we're gonna revert back, back to the mean on a sort of like a weekly template. Um, we ranged up top here, but we still had like a pretty decent support area, and also the dollar was kind of strong still. This is a USD CAD, and I kind of this is we're in an uptrend at this point. For me, there was really looking back in hindsight, there wasn't enough of a breakdown on a higher time frame to start looking for a sell off just yet. There haven't been enough like structure breakdown, or at the time where I entered in this trade, it was before my my entry time that I typically look for, which is between like 9:45 to after 10 a.m. I entered this trade before the New York Open because I was anxious, I wasn't clear minded, I was revenge trading, and it didn't meet all my rules. Part of my rules is it needs to do a liquidity grab before I entered. And as you can see, I entered way too early on this trade. Oh man. Okay, we're back. Okay, we're back. I entered way too early on this trade. Let's look at the time I entered this trade. Hmm, where's the time? Entry time 9:17. Way, come on, what is going on with my screens? Not cool. Entry time was way too early on this trade. Way before the Open, the New York Open on a Friday. Fridays can get choppy. If you don't see a clear reason to enter, you shouldn't enter. At this point, I wasn't following my rules. I was anxious. I just wanted to like make this money back that I should have made yesterday. And as you can see, I wasn't in this trade for very long because it quickly went against me, and then it grabbed the liquidity, which was this wick up top here, and then it started trading back down inside. Now, this trade could very well still be valid going into this new week coming up, but I got in way too early. I didn't wait for my rules to be met before I jumped in, and then I got blitzed. I got stopped out, and I lost a good chunk of money. And in this account, I can't afford this type of big loss because this is a tiny account. I can't afford a $500 loss on a trade followed by another 208. You know, um, total loss for this trade was about seven and some change. And I can't afford I can't afford to lose that big in this tiny account. I am taking big risk in this account, but I'm also very mindful to quickly hit out if this thing is going against me. And I'm okay taking a $250 loss. Max loss limit on this account for me should be $500. And even that's too much. So, I let my emotions get involved. I let my desires to make money cloud my judgment. I made it about the P&L, and I deviated away from the process. So this cannot happen going forward. It just cannot. I can't afford it. Um, so this is more or less what happened to me this week. As you can see, week one good, week two good, week three I was doing good, but got greedy and ended up with this. So I have an opportunity to bounce back in this last full week of the month, and I need to remember what I was doing earlier in the month, sticking to the process, waiting and waiting, hunting out the best quality setups before I enter into the trade. So this is my trading review for USDCAD for week three, and like I said, I gotta do the good with the bad with the good, and I share my full experience with what trading really is, because there's no such thing as a perfect strategy. You're gonna run into a buzzsaw at some point, self-inflicted, market inflicted. However, risk needs to be mitigated, and that's how you're gonna stay alive long enough to get to the next trade, and and not scar yourself and do a bunch of psychological damage that is hard to come back from. Overall, in the month, I'm still up. I should be proud of my performance. It's my monthly stat. I'm up about $5,200 in this account, and I'm up in about another 3K in another account. So overall, I am still on pace to finish the month on a solid note. But I cannot let little things like this fester into big things like this, which will lead to potentially like worse losses. So I'm catching myself now, coaching myself, talking to myself, just making sure I get back to baseline and start fresh. Forgive myself for the mistakes, so that way I could be clear headed, uh, going into the week, get proper sleep. It's already midnight and I'm doing this late, but I'm gonna get to sleep. I'm gonna do all my pre-market checks before I enter the market tomorrow. If I enter, I usually do not take trades on Mondays. I don't think that's gonna change tomorrow. We have major red news on Tuesday. I'd much rather wait until after that major red news to get involved. Let's see what's on the docket. So Monday, there's no major red news. Tuesday we have some news in London session, and then the one that I'm eyeing mainly is flash manufacturing PMI on Tuesday at 9:45 a.m. And ideally we want to get involved after 10 a.m. So you know we'll see what happens. Other than that, this is trading, and you got to keep trekking. And peace out.